I've spoken with certified Medicaid planners. They've given me the green light to go ahead. I'd really like to get started on this, but I do need to find out when you are becoming a certified provider, and if not, if you have another facility that's connected to you that is already a provider, because we don't have the money to pay that case. So, you know, and if you can't sort of get any firm kind of commitment there, take a look at the invoice and call the main office. The head office might even be in New Jersey, for example.
Okay.
And you can say, you know, we're really keen on a property, on a, you know, facility that you have in Ohio, and we'd really like to know, we understand it's going to be certified to accept Medicaid, and we're just wondering how we find out when and how. Now, they might just turn you around and say, you know, we'll chat with them, but really, it's a little more productive than that, because they have to know when that's going to be taking place.
Yeah.
They put in the request.
I gotcha.
You know, because there's quite a bit of money to be made in this business, and so we don't need business plans with a chance. It's like any other business, you know. And so the only one you don't want to perhaps get caught up in is somebody sort of in a wishful thinking, you know, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but somebody who says, you know, they heard at the lunch table that they were going to become certified, but it's not rolling yet.
Yeah.
So you might want to just kind of get them sort of, because you may have to find another facility that can accept your mother right away. I mean, if you're budgeted for it for a little bit longer, okay.
Yeah.
But if that sort of, you know, it's really turning people's pockets inside out, given the climate right now, the economic climate, you may want to see if there's something else that she likes, you know, in a similar area.
Well, they've written me a couple emails back and forth. I mean, that basically said to me, "Don't worry about it." You know, we had a what did you call it? I think you know, they came in to review, I guess, to dot the I's, cross the T's, whatever they do to certify you for Medicaid. And they said they had to redo a couple things, so I don't know what that meant, but they assured me that it'll be no problem. So.
Yeah, it could be anything from railings to.
Yeah.
You know, it could be an exit light result. You know, they're very, very strict about that because of safety of the elders.
Well, and they have a whole section. They have a whole section of memory care too. So maybe that, you know, has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a lot to be considered. So this may or may not be a big chain type facility, because most of them will precisely, in fact, they'll go over and beyond what providers are required to do, just to make sure everything's up to code. So that's really what it comes down to. They look at the personnel, they look at the training, they look at the, you know, background checks, all that, and then they're starting to look at structural things.
Yeah, I mean, when I write out checks, it's called Washington Operations and Fairmont of Washington Township. So I don't know. That's all it says.
Could be local. It could be.
Yeah, I think it is. But okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? I think right now we're okay. And, you know, given the emails that they sent me, I've got documentation that tells me that once they get certified, that my mother has a room, so they're not going to kick her out, which is good.
Sure, no, of course not. So, really, now, Medicaid in Ohio can take 45 to 90 days
Right.
To process an application. What you might want to consider doing, because there's a couple of things here, in the 5-year look back, which are perfectly normal things, but you always have to be mindful of the point of view of who's processing at the other end. They're not there to help your mother apply or to help you to help your mother. They're there to process.
Yeah.
And so if they see something where she wrote you a check for $10,000 or $5,000, and really it was for 3 months of HOA property taxes in lieu of rent,
Yeah.
they can stop the application and set it aside and or disqualify it without even really including you in that. Or if you're inclined, you can also use a professional service such as us, and what we do is we complete the application before we submit it.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've already got that information, and we've got basically documentation that says you're going to see these withdrawals throughout this year to this year. The applicant was living with the daughter, and in lieu of rent, which was quite generous, they only paid HOA fees, and that's why you're going to see somewhat intermittent payments transferring from her account. Those kinds of things, so that it doesn't slow down the application.
Well, one thing that you'll probably want to give me a hug about is since we bought that condo together in, I don't know, I mean, I bought that condo in 2002, okay? So my mother's lived there up until this past May 1st. So I have a matrix that I made of her bills since 2002, and I've got them in a file. So they're by month, and there's only 4 or 5 bills that she ever paid. One was she helped me with taxes. She helped me with HOA fees, and then she has her.
I was just going to interject to save you some time. You only have to go back 5 years.
Okay.
Anything, like there's your cutoff.
Yeah. Okay. 5 years.
There's a 60-month look back in every state except California and New York for home care. So you've got that 60 months. And so, for example, if we were helping you as a client, what we'd be doing is we would be looking through the finances or whatever you've set up. A lot of people have done a lot of diligent work on their own. And we would correspond it with the bank statements, because Medicaid's going to go over those. So you don't want to leave anything to guesswork.
Yeah, right.
So
Mm-hmm.
if a person applies on their own, generally what happens is they don't have the corresponding documentation. They ask for it in piecemeal. Well, show us that and give us this, and then there's a deadline. Okay, so having done that in advance, what we're essentially doing is we're looking at anything that's an anomaly that we know Medicaid in Ohio is going to flag or stall over. So we preemptively are ready to explain it to them.
Yeah.
That was HOA, that was HOA. What else you're going to notice? You're going to notice is there never was any checks written to rent. None.
Right.
Okay, and so what that does is it pushes the application forward and doesn't give them a chance to say, well, okay, there's nothing there. Because the infuriating thing about Medicaid for folks that are doing this on their own is Medicaid does not look backwards and forwards and say, well, just let me check and see if there's any rental payment.
Yeah.
There's not. That's probably what that is. In other words, there isn't a column that says common sense would say. Okay, and so some counties are better than others. It doesn't mean people can't do it on their own, but if people want to sort of reduce the risk and also, expedite the application so it doesn't get stuck, and if it does, there's people there to advocate for appeals and things like that that know what they're doing. That's one reason why you might seek out professional assistance, because with the enrollment that the state allows themselves, you don't really want it to go any longer than it does.
Well,
So,
Holly, let me just say something. Looking at all my mom's records over the last 5 years, you're never going to see a check, because I manage her checking account too. I mean, at Fifth Third Bank, and when I pay all her bills, and then I just transfer. Like, let's say the bills are $650 for last month. I just go into her checking account, transfer it to my checking account. That's the way it is. There's no check. She doesn't never write a check to me. It's all just
okay. So from Medicaid's point of view, and I'm glad you brought that up, and this is very common, so again, nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Here's essentially the best way to frame it is to look at it from Medicaid's point of view. It's a machine. It's not it's not people with feelings or discovery skills.
Gotcha.
Okay? They're
Gotcha.
not set up that way. So what their point of view is, even if it's frequent and consistent,
Yeah.
they are only seeing anomaly after anomaly after anomaly, and maybe someone in the family was transferring themselves $600 just willy-nilly whenever they wanted it,
Yeah.
and they were divested. Now, that's not true. We would know that's not true. It's very common. So with something like that, that's what needs an affidavit or a presentation to say, this is how it was done.
Yeah.
I mean, she's living with her, sitting at her computer, mother's over there,
Yeah.
And she's transferring money from here to pay for, medical things or this or that, or getting her hair done, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Right? And so once that is done, they can't disqualify. They could try, but it would just go to appeal, and then it would be hardship. Your mother would be suffering hardship because of very ordinary activities. was going to impede the application from being approved. So this is where there can be little hiccups along the way. With us, what we've come across this so many times, that we just say, well, we can set up a rental agreement if you like, but in lieu of this and the transfer for this, you'll see some consistency, and then it looks like the daughter sits down, once or twice or three times a month and transfers back, or even, shops, spontaneously, whatever the case is. It is just somebody caretaking for their parent, and the other thing we use for advocacy that really holds a real, a lot of water is to be able to say to them, do you see a rent check anywhere?
Yeah.
If you see somebody who's charging their parents,
Yeah.
heat,
Right.
light, rent, vehicle, gas,
Right. Right.
transportation, you don't see any of that. The reason you don't
No.
is because the mother was too frail to manage her own finances.
Right.
The family has no need for her money. And she wasn't trying to qualify, diverse her resources to qualify for Medicaid senior. It was just her day-to-day.
Right.
The fact her costs came down because of her daughter. So that's usually the way it's presented thereabouts,
Yeah.
and use the good sense. And if you get a county worker that's not exactly got up on the right side of the bed, then we just take it into appeals, and it goes through a judge, and they usually see everything very clearly.
Yeah, well, thankfully I have pretty good records, and the only thing that I'm probably delinquent with is I didn't make the transfer of monthly bills. I totaled it on my matrix, but being a zillion things going on in my life, I might summarize it after 3 months and then just transfer, like $1,200 versus $650, whatever it was. So I never did. I don't think very often that I did it by month because it was just not worth my. It didn't matter to her and it didn't matter to me. I just was like, I'll get it done when I get it done. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I cared for my mother until she was 88, so I'm
so you know what I mean. Yeah.
I understand that, and the combat sleeping.
The what?
The combat sleeping I did every night. Oops, I hear her little rollators moving.
Oh no. So she lived with you. She lived with you?
I lived with her.
You lived. Oh, well, that was nice. That's a big job. That's a big job.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. But not a moment of regret. And I ended up working here afterwards. I've been here for now 6 years, going on to my 7th year. And I think one of the reasons why I did that was I ended up being able to really empathize with people and understand what people are going through. That's what our company is all about. It's still a family business that started from the nightmare of Medi-Cal in California, and now we're nationwide. So,
wow.
Yeah. So we can help you if you decide that you do want to.
Well, Holly, let me interrupt you. I want turnkey. So yes, I do want you. I don't have time, and I don't want to even put the energy into it. That's why I want to hire you. Just turnkey. Just make it happen. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so there will be a period though we're going to have to gather the documents. That's as busy as you're going to get. We can guide you through all of that.
Yeah.
Your encrypted servers, you're able to do that from the comfort of your home. And once we submit the application, we manage it as a project all the way through. If you want updates, we give updates naturally. And also, if you want, if we get RFIs, which are requests for information, that we can't see right out front of, we haven't discussed with our client, then we get on the phone to you, get a clarification of what that is, and then we keep pushing the application forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you don't have any further questions, let me leave you with Nick to wrap up the call. I'll head off to my next consultation. If you do have any further questions that Nick isn't able to answer, by all means, set up a case review. But he'll send you out a proposal and some links so that you can put our feet to the fire if you wish.
So you're not the one that's going to manage my paperwork then?
No, I'll be writing up my notes of there's eligibility and doing my recommendations, and you would be assigned a Medicaid team. Not guaranteed that I'll be on that team. What you're going to end up having is you're going to have 4 experts in every area that will be reaching out to you, depending on when you pay, within a day or two. And the turnaround is very fast here, and then they send you out a checklist of documents, document checklist, so you know exactly what you need to get. If you have trouble getting anything, they help you with that as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then they guide you on putting the application, and then we do the submission, make sure everything is correct.
I know I read on the website, or
Alright.
some website, there's like 12 pages or something, or 20 pages. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It can be, but it does help a lot when you get it narrowed down. Sometimes we have to narrow down right to the state and county. And so once you get that, you know, we find out what you know, what you have, what you don't have, that's when we begin to shape it up. And as soon as those documents get back to us, as soon as you can sort of maybe, you know, put your feet up for a while and just as questions come in. You'll never have to speak to Medicaid other than they may request, and they are completely in compliance to do so, is to get notification from you that you have authorized, given authorized agency to Elder Care Resource Planning LLC. Other than that, they should not be contacting you. You just redirect them right back to us and notify your team that they were trying to get information from you.
So how do people, how do elderly people do this that don't have a family? How do they get to Medicaid, for crying out loud?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's real challenging. We do have people that call in that they're 80, and I'm always asking, do you have any a trusted friend from church, a neighbor that you've known for years? You have to be careful of exploitation too.
Yeah.
We have to be so mindful of our elders. So, anyways, I do have to run.
Okay, all right.
Let me leave you with Nick,
Okay.
and let me know if you need anything else.
All right. Thanks.
Okay?
All right. Bye bye.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Holly.
Bye bye.
All right, Marlene, I'm so glad we were able to dive into this with Holly. And, you know, like she said, we're able to get started on this right away. And it is that turnkey service. Once we have all the documents, you know, we're seeing this through to approval. The flat rate fee for the entire project is going to be $6,400 in this case. Like we discussed, we are a valid expense, right? So we're part of that spend down. We're coming from your mother's resources in this case here. And that is the entire project, right? So there's no additional fees, nothing that you have to worry about down the line here. So I will have that over to you in just a minute. Once you take care of the fee and the signature, that is when I can get everything over to the Medicaid team, and they are reaching out to you within a business day.
So I have to write you out a check for $6,400?
That is correct. That is the fee for the entire process. It doesn't need to be a check necessarily. It can be done with a card or bank transfer.
But what do you?
But that is the fee for the entire process.
But what do you mean spend down then through Medicaid? You mean what?
So right now, yeah, I'll explain that. Yeah, so right now your mother has about $14,000, I believe, right? About $14,000 left in her name.
She has. I did a double check right now to see how much was in her checking and savings as of now, deducted. Let's see, what did I put down here? Probably about $28,000 to her name. That's it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
28,000.
28,000. Got it. Okay. So in order to be eligible for Medicaid, we have to show a bank balance below 2,000. Right. So that doesn't necessarily mean that all this money needs to be spent. Sometimes there's other ways to go about it, right? You know, with different strategies. But in order to be eligible, we have to show that we're below the asset limit. And so how do you get below the asset limit? Valid spend downs in the eyes of Medicaid, right? You can spend this money on certain things, and there's other strategies as well that we can explore with the specialist on the back end here. But that's what I mean by the cost of our services. It's part of that process. It's part of the spend down. We are a valid Medicaid expense.
So right now, I mean, my mother stashed away a little cash, which was 14,000, I think, and so that's not in her checking or savings. So right now, checking and savings, she has 14,800. That's it. That's all anybody's going to see,
Okay.
you know, visually. But you're saying it has to be what? 2,000?
It has to be spent down to below 2,000. I know that's shocking. It's a little tough with Medicaid. But here's the problem, right? If we don't show that, we can't begin processing the application, right? So we'll be kind of stuck in the mud and waiting, and that means that we're spending money on the facility anyway, right? So it's a tough situation with the spend down. I can't say for certain about the cash. You know, we have to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
But the money in the bank for certain will need to be spent down below 2,000.
But what I mean, she
So
gets.
a lot of times.
But she gets her Social Security and pension, and it's always going to be a little bit above 2,000.
That's okay. You don't have to worry about that because the way that this will work is that her income, most of her income will become her patient liability, and so it'll go in each month, but it's going out each month, right? So she's paying
Right.
a portion of her bill,
Right.
and then so her average balance will remain below 2,000. One of the things that we explore in situations like this, where we have a small spend down, is prepaying burial expenses, right? Because that's a future expense anyway that either the family's gonna have to pay in a future date, or we can do it right now with the irrevocable funeral trust, and that is something we will set up as part of our service, right? So we'll help you deal with all that as well.
Well, she's already paid for that. That's all paid for.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. How much did she put into that funeral fund?
She already paid in the hometown we grew up with in Michigan. I think it ended up, it was below 8,000, like 7,200, and she's already got her casket,
Okay.
everything's all paid for.
Everything is all paid for. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Well, if for whatever reason we need to top that up, we can. But otherwise, we'll find different other things that will benefit her directly, right? We don't want to waste this money spending it on the facility if we don't have to.
Yeah.
And so, we'll take a look at all that and see what spend down options we have. And if there's a different strategy too, that's something the eligibility specialist will go over so that we can begin the process of the application and we don't have to wait.
I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm stupid or what, but explain to me spend down option. What does that mean?
So, like I mentioned, we have to get below 2,000, right? And
Yeah.
so we can't just divest the money unless we're prepared to do that strategically, by incurring a penalty, right? So what I mean by that is that if we have 14,000 in countable assets, right,
Mhm.
which is possible, we don't know about the cash yet,
Yeah.
until we do the review of finances, but we have 14,000. We need to get below 2,000. Our services are a valid expense, so we're down to, let's call it 8,000. We still have to spend 6,000 in order to become eligible.
I
So
see.
now we want to look at what can we spend this money on that's going to benefit her immediately and directly, right? Even things as simple as comfort items. Could she use new eyeglasses, hearing aids, dentistry, right? We want to explore things that are valid Medicaid expenses so that we can get eligible as soon as possible.
I see. Got it. But
Yeah,
in
you don't have to worry too much about that though, because that is something where it's a holistic approach with us, right? We're not just saying, hey, spend the money and come back, and I know that some companies try to do that. But we're like saying, hey, what if we did X, Y, Z? This will help, this will work out. Oh, some of our clients have done this, and this has really benefited the families because of, this reason, right? We're with you from beginning until end, and that includes the spend down support.
so spending down would be not just writing out a check to her kids. You're talking about wheelchair, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wheelchair. Yeah, exactly. And then there's sometimes a scenario where we're like, okay, we're quote unquote have to spend 6,000, but we don't have anything to spend it on. Okay, well, what if we wrote a check to so and so, right? And then we told Medicaid that we did that, right? Well, Medicaid's going to come back and say, yeah, you're approved, but you divested $6,000,
Right.
and we're going to assess a penalty for a month's delay
Gotcha.
in benefits. Right, that's okay too, right? As long as we do it strategically and we're prepared for everything, right? So that's something that they'll coach you up on and make sure that you're ready to go.
Okay. All right.
All right, excellent. So yeah, I'll get that service agreement over to you in just a minute here. Like I said, as soon as you're ready, we'll get started on this within a business day of that signature and making that payment. And we'll get the ball rolling.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, Nick.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bill.